Hello, my lovely rose garden, and welcome to an enchanted book review. My name is Avalon Roselin, indie author, and your rose-themed enchantress for the evening. I will admit to being a snob about the A Twisted Tale series that Disney started publishing in 2015 with A Whole New World, their reimagining of Aladdin where said lovable thief never found the magic lamp. As Old as Time was the third entry in the series, released in 2016, with the tagline, "What if Belle's mother cursed the beast?" Unfortunately for me and my judgment of books by covers, I didn't become aware of this volume until after I had already seen the 2017 live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast, and just kind of assumed that this novel was meant to be a companion to that film, what with its bizarre focus on Belle's mom being shoehorned in. But the live-action remake wishes it could be half as awesome as Old as Time and its exploration of Belle's mom, or a plague, or magical forgetting spells. So let's get to why this is an awesome reimagining of the classic story, while the 2017 film, to be charitable, wasn't. I am going to try not to ramble and rant about the 2017 film too much, but given that the original is one of my and Ray's favorite movies, in fact, I'm pretty sure it is his favorite movie, we have a lot of feelings about the remake and its miserable attempts to expand the lore that go nowhere, a problem that this book does not have, because the lore expansions in this book are heckin' awesome. Alright, let me actually tell you about it. As Old as Time, unlike the remake, understands that its audience is already familiar with the animated original, and instead of just using that nostalgia as a cash grab of epic proportions, it actually introduces original elements to create a unique story that adds to the original. This is not a direct remake, and I'm saying that the live-action movies shouldn't be either. Disney has some of the most talented, creative people under its roof. Stop restricting them because you're afraid a new idea won't make as much money. Sorry, back to the book. Let me try again. As Old as Time introduces the readers to a marginalized group of people called les chamans, people who have some kind of magical ability. So yes, while Belle's mother is the enchantress in this version, she is by no means the most specialist person in all the land because there are other people who do have magic. And these abilities are the source of their marginalization. Les chamans are vastly outnumbered by naturels, or people without powers, and as such don't have a lot of societal power. Those who are in power, aka the king and queen, are mistrustful of these strange people and their unnatural powers and seek to remove them from society. This is why Belle's mother is not present in her life, and though Maurice holds out hope that she will one day return to them, well, the prologue certainly hints to there being nefarious reasons why that is not the case. So instead of bonding over dead moms, like a certain other adaptation, the reader is treated to a reason for the separation that actually adds new elements to the story to explore, and we get to see a younger Maurice being a total badass who fights in defense of the oppressed. As you can probably guess, As Old as Time is told in alternating perspectives and timelines up to a point. Part 1's chapters alternatingly follow a young Maurice as he watches the world change around him, becoming more and more hostile to Les Chamans, while also trying to live a peaceful life with Roselin, who is herself quite the firecracker, while Belle's chapters retell the early portions of the animated film. Part 2 ends Maurice's distant prologue, and then the chapters alternate between Belle and the Beast as they diverge from the movie's plot by a wide margin. Why I think this works is in part because As Old as Time makes no attempts to discount the original film. It doesn't give a cheeky nod to the viewer and say, "See, we heard your bad faith criticism and fixed this plot hole." Instead, it explores in good faith the ramifications of an expanded world. Where the 2017 movie feels like it approaches any questions about the source material with a sardonic hand wave and, well, fine, we'll address it, but only just, as old as time seeks to answer and incorporate them into an interesting and memorable story. What if the enchantress was but one of many magical citizens? Why does no one remember the kingdom not a full day's ride away from the small provincial town? What happens if the beast's curse isn't broken? Was it fair of the enchantress to curse an 11-year-old child? Of course, answering these things is going to take us into spoiler territory, so let me state now, I do strongly recommend this book, especially to fans of the original who are okay with darker themes and plot events, because as we move on to the twist, the book becomes much less a fantasy romance and much more a gothic mystery. If you are leaving the video now, please remember to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. I make videos about the books I read and the books I write, and your support really makes a difference for an indie author like me. If you're interested in supporting me even further, please consider buying my books or becoming a patron. You can find the links to my website, Patreon, Ko-fi, and social media accounts in the description. Okay. A lot of the additional material early on in the book deals with the treatment of Les Charmants and the reason why the enchantress curses the prince, and then is absent from Belle's life. And the reason is genocide. Like I said, this book gets dark. The king and queen, untrusting of Les Charmants, allow Monsieur Dark, remember the asylum guy in the film, to disappear Les Charmants to his asylum and conduct experiments on them to cleanse them of their magical abilities. This, despite the fact that Dark himself is one of Les Charmants with the ability to see the future, which he goes through a dangerous experimental operation to remove. Because of his actions, there is no one really left to help save the formerly magical kingdom from a plague which kills the king and queen, and when they call upon the enchantress Roselin to save them, she is so angry at their actions that she only saves the children, stopping them from being infected with the fever, but leaving any adult who catches it to die. I should say right now, as the book does, that Rosalind is a very complicated character, neither wholly good nor bad. She has emotions, she acts on them. She never sets out with the intention to cause harm, but she might not prevent harm if she's been pissed off, and she definitely was by the bigoted king and queen who allowed the suffering of so many of their own citizens. Like I said, it is a straight-up genocide of Les Charmants, most of whom are not as powerful as Rosalind and unable to defend themselves. Now, when Rosalind was captured herself, she had a memory wipe spell on standby to remove Les Charmants from the memory of the Naturel. In her mind, this would protect them from the harm they had received up to that point, since she didn't know that Dark was the one behind the disappearances. He was friends with Maurice, close enough to them to be at baby Belle's christening, so the idea that his self-hatred would push him this far was a deep betrayal to Rosalind and Maurice when they did find out the truth in the climax. Years later, when Rosalind arrives to curse the young prince, it is very much her trauma and leftover disgust and anger at the king and queen that guides her actions in cursing the prince. But as is repeated throughout the book, magic always comes back on itself. It is her cursing the prince, and that curse combined with her memory-altering spell erasing it from existence, that all but guarantees that her daughter Belle will find the castle and be the one to break or fulfill the curse one day. And in this book, Belle fulfills the curse. This is where the book truly diverges from the movie's plot. When Belle goes into the West Wing after sneaking away from Cogsworth and Lumiere, the beast is just slightly too slow in stopping her from touching the enchanted rose, and when she touches it, she kills it, which unintentionally completes the curse. From that moment on, the castle is slowly overtaken by icy tendrils that will eventually drag it down below the earth, vanishing it completely. The enchanted servants and the beast start to slowly lose their humanity. Aware of the curse and the fact that her mother cast it, Belle strives alongside the beast to find a different way to break the curse, spending hours studying in the library to see if they can find out who the enchantress was, why Belle can't remember anything specific about her, and how they can undo the curse before the servants become inanimate objects and the beast is nothing but a mindless monster. The climax comes when both Maurice and Belle are captured by Dark and taken to the asylum. There is some truly dark and traumatizing imagery in these chapters as Belle sees the results of Dark's experiments, including those done on her own mother for the last decade, and experiences those procedures herself as Dark decides to confirm that she is not magical. I can't think of many things more distressing to one's inner child than having your favorite Disney princess strapped to an operating table and anesthetized against her will. Obviously, it is still a Disney property, so the reader knows she will be okay and the villain will be defeated at the end, but it is distressing to see a beloved character in that kind of situation. You will notice I haven't mentioned Gaston much, and that is because he is kind of an afterthought. Some of his actions do still serve as an impetus to some bad things happening, but Dark is the villain of this story. Gaston is a minor antagonist at best and unwitting stooge at worst. I've spoken at length about the plot, and despite its unexpectedly dark turn, I did truly love its gothic aesthetic and storytelling. But it is definitely not a romance, as the source material is. There is no pressing need for Belle and Beast to fall in love and break the spell, because that is no longer on the table. Which is not to say that they don't fall in love, they do, but the way it comes about does not follow the movie at all. Fans of the film may be remiss at the absence of the library gift scene or the ballroom scene, but we have the animated film for that. The book provides us with Beast and Belle spending lots of time together doing research and attempting to cook their own dinner when some of their questions upset Mrs. Potts and they decide to give her the night off in apology. Their close proximity and conversation still leads to very solid chemistry between them, and they do fall for each other by the end of the book. Beast especially has some very cute internal monologues over how much he likes Belle, and I love that when they are separately faced with a problem, their first thought is what the other one would do to solve it. They work so well together despite the completely different circumstances from the movie that they face, and despite the curse not being broken in full, there is still a power of love scene at the end where Belle and Beast's love saves him from losing his humanity, and it's very sweet. I also love the way the book ultimately ends. Beast forgoes his chance to be human again to give that to the servants instead, proving his development into a more selfless and kind king. He and Belle then set out on adventures to find the rest of Les Charmants and bring them home, and maybe someday break the curse upon him completely. There is definitely way more here than would have probably fit into a film, even a slightly long one, but I truly wish that the live-action remakes had the guts to be true reimaginings of the story. There are elements of this story in the 2017 film, but they aren't expanded upon nearly enough. It kind of feels like Liz Braswell was given a list of concepts to work into a Beauty and the Beast retelling, like the Enchantress returning at the end, Belle's mom being an important figure, and a plague, and she ended up using those concepts in far more coherent and interesting ways than the film to create a story that really and truly captures the imagination and says something. And while the something it says is a tale as old as time itself, don't treat others badly for being different, it's a message well worth repeating. I would most recommend this book to people who are into dark fantasy, gothic mysteries, and who can handle a little bit of medical horror. While I originally considered this book for my classroom library, I don't think I would let anyone younger than 13 or so read this one, and even then I'd probably recommend an adult read it with them, because like I said a few times, it does get quite dark and deals pretty explicitly with heavy themes like systematic oppression, genocide, medical abuse, and loss of mental awareness. I haven't read any of the other Twisted Tale books, but thanks to this volume, I am actually considering picking up some of the ones that pertain to my favorite Disney characters, or at least the ones written by Liz Braswell, because I so thoroughly enjoyed As Old as Time. If you've made it to the end of the review, leave me a rose emoji and tell me what you would turn into if you were cursed in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons. If you'd like to see your name here or in the description below, please consider joining my Patreon. Your support means so much to me and allows me to continue making content. If you want to support my content in different ways, consider buying my books, donating on Ko-fi, subscribing to the channel, or even just giving this video a like and comment. Any and everything is appreciated so much. Keep growing till next time, Rose Garden!